There are so many things closing all around rural America in this country, and it's not surprising that there are education deserts there. This came out July 1st, 2019, at The Atlantic, the education deserts of rural America. 1 in 3 Montanans live more than 60 minutes from the nearest college campus. The tracts of land that separate these individuals and institutions are sometimes called education deserts, and they cover many patches of rural America. And to that, the fact that nearly 40% of first time, full time freshmen attend institutions fewer than 50 miles from home. And these statistics begin to sketch the outlines of a crisis. The high school education gap actually narrowed between 2000 and 2015. Now, students are just about as likely to obtain a high school diploma, whether they live in a rural or an urban environment, according to a report from the United States Department of Agriculture. But during the same time period, the college completion gap has widened. The share of urban adults with at least a bachelor's degree grew from 26% to 33%, while in rural areas, share grew from 15% to 19%, the report found. The gap could be due in part to students leaving rural areas after college, or to adults with college degrees moving to urban or suburban areas in search of jobs. Regardless, the gaps have grown by 4%. We need to take seriously the idea that everyone deserves access to a quality education, and we need to do everything we can to make that a reality. Tara Westover, the author of the memoirs Educated, said on stage at the Aspen's Idea Festivals. Okay, so they are acknowledging that there are, these education deserts in rural America. Her comments harken back to the research that has been done on the diploma divide between Republicans and Democrats since the election of Trump. In the 2016 election, 66% of non college educated white voters voted for Trump, compared with just 48% of white voters who did have a college degree. The trend grew during the midterms. At the same time, and perhaps relatedly, there is an urban rural split, with voters in major cities almost unfailingly voting for Democrats and voters in more rural areas leaning towards Republicans. But those who live in rural areas tend to be stereotyped as white people who vote for Trump, which neglects the diversity of people and thought there. hmm As a Chronicle Higher Education analysis revealed, 29.5% of all Native Americans live in education deserts, dotting rural areas across the country, which is very true. And they totally ignore the black community that's also in rural America completely. That's where both of my parents came from. They came from rural areas, and there's still quite a few black people in those areas. Online education is also sometimes touted as a solution for education deserts, but a rural student seeking an online degree is more likely to run into infrastructure problems. That's right, because in many locations, they don't even have broadband in rural America. So that's very true. A report from the Center for American Progress a left leaning think tank showed only about 63% of people in rural areas have broadband internet access in their homes, compared with 75% of people in urban locales, which is very true. Another potential answer to is to encourage states to invest in higher education, placing more good, affordable options in places that need them. But if the trend of state disinvestment in public higher education holds, that may prove fruitless. Alaska's governor, for example, cut $130 million from the state university system budget on Friday. Coupled with the previous cuts, the state system has lost 41% of its state support budget this year. Yeah, I heard the people in Alaska were not happy about that. The truth of education in America, as Westover noted, is that some people are going to get a lot of it and others are going to get a little. It's hard to see those dynamics changing without rebuilding, and in some cases, building for the first time an infrastructure to support the students who have been left out. Well, I don't know. How do you keep a place going that really is not drawing a lot of people? You really can't, you know? And not only that, I can see how it's happening in rural America because the elderly people are really your biggest population there. And many of them are not running to get an education, especially if they're senior citizens. So you can see how this sort of thing happens. They don't have as many young people in rural America as they did years ago. Many of them leave because there's just not enough job opportunity there. And the jobs that they do have that are available are very low paying. They don't want those jobs because they can do those same jobs in more of a metropolitan area and get a way bigger salary than what they would get offered in rural America. So, as long as there are a lot of disadvantages for them, as long as there are a lot of disadvantages for them to remain in rural America, you're going to keep seeing it decline because the opportunities, unfortunately, are around the urban areas and not the rural areas. So, you know, that kind of life was very appealing many years ago. But now a lot of people know if they want to make good money, they got to get closer and closer to the cities. And this is why you see the gentrification happening, ladies and gentlemen, because they are looking to move in the heart of the city where everything is. Once you're in the heart of the city, you literally don't have to fight hard to find anything. Everything is all around you, you know? And there's hardly no natural disasters within these cities that you see around the country. You just don't see it like you do in these more remote areas. And that is another reason why so many people are in those cities. You don't have major floods in the middle of the cities. It's rare. It does not happen a lot. You may have some locations that back up and flood, but overall, most of these cities don't flood. You don't have landslides there. You don't have a lot of major tornadoes going through the cities. So, eliminating many of the natural disasters alone is another attraction that people have to the cities. Where you see a lot of these people in these remote areas, they're getting flooded out, their homes are being bought out, they have to lean on the government for help every time there's a natural disaster. And the cycle just keeps repeating over and over in those areas. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.